and we have to take the concerns of women seriously. So I have a question for you. If there were women in the secular community who said that you were harassing people in the movement, should we take their concerns seriously and have you removed from conferences?
Should you take those concerns seriously? Absolutely.
In 2010, after Ellen Johnson stepped down as president of the American Atheists, David Silverman took command of the organization and went on to make his mark as a firebrand atheist, with campaigns such as the anti-Christmas billboards featuring unapologetic slogans like "Keep the Merry, Dump the Myth," and appearances on Fox News alongside Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly. He boasted, and rightly so, of raising awareness and the acceptance of secular people in the world, going on to plan and execute the now famous Reason Rally 2012, a gathering of non-believers in Washington, D.C. that boasted tens of thousands of attendees. His tenure as president of the American Atheists was marked by controversy, not just clashing with people in religious communities, but ideological civil warfare from within the secular movement. Many in the movement will remember Elevator Gate and Gamergate, gates out the wazoo, to the point that secular conferences started adopting policies and codes of conduct that forbade inappropriate sexual contact, which was odd for many reasons, and I don't have hours to go into it here, but bizarre because it became a matter of a joke that atheist conferences and events were now known in social justice warrior circles as unsafe places where sexual assault was the rule, not the exception, whereas the majority of us in the community were blissfully unaware of the lawless Wild West our events had become. And there's a reason for that. They had not become such dangerous places. Only in the minds of the manufactured outrage community and the perpetual victim culture that has arisen in recent years.
The even worse thing is that the Lincoln Memorial typically has about 20,000 visitors per day. And this was their turnout. And it wouldn't surprise me if the lion's share of the people there are just strays who happen to be visiting the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, I'd like to suggest that the organisers of this event learn from their mistakes, that freethinkers really don't want to go to a conference with a code of conduct that you would expect for a kindergarten for 5-year-olds, which is full of social justice warrior crap about respecting people's pronouns. That is, they really don't want to go to a non-religious event where the lead item on the agenda is LGBTQ whatever rights. I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm not so sure there's anything in this movement worth saving.
Jumping into the Wayback Machine, we can peek at what Skepchick was doing several years ago regarding these perilous topics. In 2012, Amy Roth on Skepchick, in an article titled "Speaking Out Against Hate Directed at Women," David Silverman wrote, "I recently wrote about dealing with hate and harassment, and a good point was brought up. How do the leaders in the secular, humanist, skeptic, and atheist communities feel about what has been happening to women online and at events? Why haven't they spoke up about it? Maybe no one has asked them to until now. Over the next few weeks, I will be asking for and posting statements from the leaders in our community. I will specifically be seeking out the men to commit, as I feel that an us against the men meme has been incorrectly spread. How do our secular leaders, and specifically the men in our movement, really feel about sexism, threats of violence, and the misogyny we have been dealing with?" David Silverman stood proud, drew a line in the sand, and made a pronouncement that was reported on Skepchick. "As a humanist, I see these threats as base and detestable. They have no redeeming value and will raise no awareness, solve no problems, and hurt those who should be friends. As a long-term activist, I see hatred and threats of violence directed at our sisters in arms to be reprehensible, serving no purpose other than to hurt and to intimidate valuable allies. As a white man, I know that so much of this hate comes from people who look like me, and they're nothing like me where it counts. As the leader of a national atheist organization, I have implemented harassment policies to minimize such irrational, hateful, and counterproductive behavior wherever my authority allows. We have a war to win, and we won't win until we can look forward without watching our own backs. American Atheist stands by all its members, supporters, and allies, and we will not tolerate hate directed at any of us, period. One has to be touched, pardon the pun, by Silverman's eloquent declaration of anti-misogyny and his stand against this vicious war on the fair sex. So it has been established that David Silverman, president of American Atheists, has zero tolerance for any funny business at, near, or around atheist functions. However, we enter a new age with the excesses of the Me Too movement, possibly in part spurred on by white knighting and virtue signaling by folks like Silverman, rampaging through social media, accusing not just alleged rapists, but carelessly thrown into the mix poor slobs that might have winked at girls at parties, now a crime, but maybe such heinous acts like showing interest in pretty women, bastards. Hanging's too good for them. The regressive left have started consuming their own in recent years. Mr. Silverman likely had good intention, especially since he was responsible for a national organization. But encouraging the authoritarian left with their 21st century version of the Salem witch trials will only lead to tears, even for the do-gooders who at the time, like David Silverman, thought encouragement of a permanent victim class was a good idea. Now Silverman finds himself in the Me Too crosshairs, and alas, BuzzFeed is compelled to report on the recent accusations against Mr. Silverman that have cost him his job at American Atheist. Reading on BuzzFeed, on Tuesday, American Atheist placed Silverman on paid leave while it investigated a complaint from staff concerned that he had not disclosed financial and personal conflicts of interest relating to the promotion of his book, Fighting God, an Atheist Manifesto for a Religious World, and the appointment to a senior position of a woman with whom Silverman was allegedly having a sexual relationship. After word spread about the investigation, American Atheists received additional written complaints about 2 allegations of sexual misconduct involving Silverman. Like many other communities in the Me Too era, the atheist movement is undergoing a reckoning over the treatment of women in its ranks. In February, BuzzFeed News exposed allegations of sexual harassment against another prominent atheist, the physicist Lawrence Krauss. Yes, we know you did. In the wake of that story, 2 women told BuzzFeed News that they were assaulted by Silverman. They each filed written complaints to American Atheists this week. In one of those complaints, a woman described a hotel room party held at the end of the 2015 American Atheist Convention in Memphis. She used her name in the confidential complaint, but because of concerns about hostility experienced by other women who have made allegations of sexual misconduct against prominent atheists, she asked BuzzFeed News to use her first initial R. She and Silverman had known each other for years, and he flirted with her throughout the evening, she wrote in the complaint. After the other guests left, R wrote that Silverman asked her to join him in smoking marijuana on the roof, but before they left the room, he suddenly forced himself on her. He physically pressed me to the wall and began to kiss me forcefully, grabbing my breast and put his hand into my leggings where there was actual penetration of my vagina, she wrote. R believed Silverman knew she was interested in BDSM and wrote that he began using insulting language, calling her a dirty little whore. He then pushed her to her knees where his penis briefly made contact with my mouth, she wrote. R got to her feet and said, "No," she wrote. Silverman then lightly slapped her face and said, "You don't get to say no to me." At that point, R said the widely used BDSM safe word, red, which stopped him, and then she left. The next day, R took photographs of bruises where she said Silverman had grasped her, and these pictures were included in her complaint to American Atheists. 2 prominent atheists confirmed to BuzzFeed News that R told them about the incident in the days after it happened. Greta Christina, a blogger and speaker, said that R was extremely distressed. It became very clear to me it was a case of sexual assault. Christina said Haina Dadahoy, who is known in atheist circles for speaking about leaving Islam to join the movement, said that they woke up the morning after the incident to find a series of distress Facebook messages from R and immediately contacted her. BuzzFeed News has reviewed the messages. I was just trying to comfort her and talk her through it, Data Boy said. R told BuzzFeed News that she did not complain to American Atheists at the time because she was worried that her reputation would be attacked given Silverman's power within the movement. She decided to tell the organization this week after learning that it was investigating him. The third allegation reviewed by the American Atheist Board involves a student, Rose St. Clair, who alleged that Silverman used his position of power to pressure her into having sex with him. At several points during this encounter, I hesitated to continue, she wrote. I believed that if I did anything to upset him, my chances at being involved in the secular community, especially with American atheists, would be ruined. In 2012, St. Clair was an undergraduate at the College of William and Mary in Virginia who hoped to make a career in the atheist movement. At the annual convention of the Secular Student Alliance in Columbus, Ohio, she was invited to go to a bar with a group of speakers at the conference, including Silverman. St. Clair said that she quickly became drunk but remembered Silverman's flirting with her and then suggesting they go to his hotel room. I don't believe I was in a position to be able to give consent. I was very intoxicated. St. Clair told BuzzFeed News. She said that Silverman did not have any condoms and pressured her into having anal sex. Afterwards, St. Clair said that Silverman told her she would have to leave early in the morning because his wife would be arriving at the hotel. She said he told her not to apply for an internship with American Atheists because appointing her could be seen as preferential treatment. I felt my interest in working for the organization was used as a way for him to have power so that I would have sex with him, St. Clair said. It is interesting to note that Rose St. Clair was one of the few women who had objected to some of the allegations made by Watson in the aftermath of Elevator Gate. What should be interesting is that a prominent leader of the secular community, a real-life giant, a mover and a shaker, David Silverman is now one of the latest in a series of what has become known as guilty as accused. The firing from his position as president of American Atheists is proof enough. My son, what have ye done? David Silverman, a man of great stature and enormous accomplishments, has fallen under the thunder of feminism. If Mr. Silverman is indeed guilty of misconduct, he should have a day of reckoning. But until allegations are somehow proven, he, as with anyone who stands accused, should be considered innocent until proven guilty. David himself expresses his lack of culpability in this Facebook post. Silverman writes, by now, you are probably aware that the Board of American Atheists has voted to terminate my contract. As you can imagine, I am distraught that my 22-year career with them has come to such an abrupt end. I have devoted most of my life to the cause of promoting and safeguarding atheists' rights in the United States. So, am deeply disappointed that I will no longer be allowed to continue to do so, at least not with American Atheists. All I know about my dismissal is what I have been told. The board informed me that certain allegations were made against me, and so they felt compelled to act. While I agreed and did fully cooperate with their extremely brief investigation, they did not fully inform me of the allegations now coming out against me, merely that there was no evidence found of the single allegation of which I was informed. I did not find out about any other complaints until I was contacted by BuzzFeed about an article. I was denied due process by American Atheists as I was never given the opportunity to defend myself by providing evidence to refute the false allegations made against me. I want to make this perfectly clear. I categorically deny any wrongdoing, legally or ethically. I have not done what I am being accused of in this article. I, for one, believe David Silverman, but it's not I who will be the final judge in the court of public opinion. It is American Atheists who fired him based on accusations, and a number of people and organizations like the Freedom from Religion Foundation who are throwing him under the bus. It is the gossip columns like BuzzFeed that will spread the damage. What is nearly as troubling, or maybe even more than the guilty until proven innocent age that we now live in, is the people that are feeding into it. I do not know if Mr. Silverman regrets these words from several years ago, but they ring like an enabler to the mob he has helped unleash. On Shadow to Light, we read, David Silverman was a proud feminist. In his book, Fighting God, David Silverman writes that he is a proud feminist. Amy Roth over at Skepchick publicly thanked Silverman for standing with us for implementing strict anti-harassment policies at American Atheist meetings. Feminist P.Z. Myers even spent $1,200 for a lifetime membership with American Atheists because he was impressed by the way Silverman went after the anti-feminist atheists. And who can forget Silverman's blood boiling and bile bubbling because of the MythCon debate?
Even though he's trying to be nice, that Vacula is still an asshole.
Well,
fuck Vacula, he's an asshole, he's an asshole, he's an asshole, he's an asshole, he's an asshole. And she writes this huge big diatribe about what an asshole you are. You still dump the shit. You can respond. I'm not saying don't respond to criticism. I'm saying don't respond with shit.
I'm sure it's still going to come out there. I really know it is. But
make
anyway,
sure
I appreciate the recommendations and the help you're saying, although you could have emailed that. I was hoping to have more of a conversation, but I'd like to move on to a next issue. You talked about that we cannot perceive the world as women perceive the world, and we have to take the concerns of women seriously. So I have a question for you. If there were women in the secular community who said that you were harassing people in the movement, should we take their concerns seriously and have you removed from conferences?
Should you take those concerns seriously? Absolutely.
And how do we go about that?
If there's a group of people in this movement, and I'm not even going to say women, if there's a group of anybody in this movement that says I'm doing something bad, you should take it seriously. If they say I'm acting in an unethical way, you should take it seriously, and you should look and you should consider it, and so should I. Yes,
I agree. I think we should look into it and consider it, but the investigations seem to yield almost no results, or certainly do not match this idea that the conference community is unsafe to women.
And when that happens, and when somebody says, Dave Silverman is harassing me, and when we look into it, and we find that this person is inventing something, I am not going to turn around and create a fake Twitter handle and start sending her rape jokes. I am not going to post her address on the internet. I am not going to call her a cunt and tell her that she needs to leave the movement. I'm going to just avoid that person. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Yeah.
Well, I don't respond with any of those things, but other people would. But don't you think it's
and if somebody does anything, Justin, you have to understand my point here, okay? My point is that you're in an ethical pit, and you're a good activist. So you make good points. You do good things, and then you do shit that makes people stop listening to you when you say good things, okay? It's all about the shit. It's not about feminism. It's not about anti-feminism. It's not A+ or counter A+. It's about the shit, the childish shit, the shit that's beneath all of us. That's the stuff that has to stop. And that's the stuff that everybody has to know you are against. Not under your breath giggling about it, not, okay, just do it while I'm turning my back. Actively against. Because you have a pit, and you have to dig yourself out of the pit. And it's not going to take 2 weeks, Justin. It's not going to take 2 weeks, and it's not going to take 2 months. You've got yourself a problem, and I can help you fix it. I really can, and I want to. But you've got to dump the shit.
I think you have a problem, Dave, and need to dump the shit, too. In your association with Free Thought Blogs, with your association with Rebecca Watson, you need to dump them and immediately distance yourself from them. Stop inviting them to your conferences. Stop inviting them to participate as speakers.
No. Not at all.
Oh,
First of all, I barely know Rebecca Watson. I barely know her. I'm friends with Greta and with PZ and with Amy. I'm also friends with a lot of other people in this movement. But it's not my job to dismiss them because they're saying we should be more ethical and we should care more about women. That's what they're saying. Now, if they come out and they say Justin Vacula is an asshole because he did this, I don't care about that. That's honest criticism. We're not here to stop people from talking or saying nasty words or criticizing each other honestly. I'm talking about the shit. The shit that's much more poignant when a man does it to a woman than from when a woman does it to a man, and we all know it. I'm talking about you're too ugly to be raped. I'm talking about you're too ugly to be raped. I'm talking about you should go fuck a knife. What?
I don't condone those comments.
You don't what?
I don't
condone those comments. Do you actively condemn them? Do you actively condemn them?
I feel no need to police the internet. In the internet, you're going to have nasty comments that people make. People make nasty comments.
I'll tell you what.
Too.
I actively condemn all the shit. I actively condemn all the shit. All of it. Will you do it with me right now?
What am I to do? I
You're
do not
to tell me that you take it seriously. That sexually fueled, sexually charged comments against women have no place in this movement. That we are about integrity. We are the good guys, Justin. We don't do that kind of shit. We fight amongst each other as ladies and gentlemen. We have disagreements, and we don't always get along, but we work together anyways because we're all fucking allies. That's what I'm saying.
I don't really think that everyone who just happens to identify as an atheist and has a blog or participates in the movement is necessarily an ally when many of their actions lead to discord, when people are attacked week by week by week on blogs, thrown under the bus, called a misogynist, a rapist, a rape apologist. I don't really consider these people allies. I would like for that rhetoric to similarly stop and to move on and work together on these issues. I would like for that to happen.
And I would like for that to happen too. And I'm going to, and so we're in agreement on that, but I'm telling you step one is dump all the shit. Everything sexually charged. Dump it. Disavow it and mean it. Own it. And when somebody on the other side says something that you don't like, don't go back to it, because that's beneath you. It's beneath all of us. We can step up.
What am I to
There's a whole bunch of people in this movement. We can all disagree. We can all agree to disagree. In fact, we don't even have to like each other. There are a few people in this movement I actively dislike, but I'm not going to fuck with them. I'm not going to try and hurt them. I'm not going to try and drum them out of the movement, because that's bad for the movement and it's bad for the country.
Well, then you need to really go after Ed Brayton and P.Z. Myers for saying that Thunderfoot needs to be drummed out of the movement. I need to be disqualified from activism. I need to be disqualified from the community. That I should be made to resign from organizations. These people really aren't my allies, Dave, when they're engaging in this kind of behavior. I would like to work together with people who consider themselves atheists in the movement, but that's made very difficult when people engage in this behavior like that. When people call women chill girls, sister punishers, gender traitors, it's very difficult to do, Dave.
It's difficult to do because you're mired in the shit already. The reason that you're having this problem is all because of the shit. And don't try and pretend that you don't have the shit.
I don't really think that. This stuff was going on well before I engaged in the issues.
What?
This stuff was going on well before I engaged with these issues.
Of course it is, and it's going on all over the country, and it's going on all in multiple different movements.
So how am I to blame?
It's not all your fault. I'm not saying
on?
Everything is your fault. I'm saying what people say to you is your fault because you have started this, you have fueled this. You have to own your ownership here. You have to own what you've done.
This
okay?
Like a lot of,
and what you face in the place you picked. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of beeping. I'm sorry, say it again.
It sounds like a lot of victim blaming, that the things that people say to me is my fault. That when people say nasty things to me, that it's my fault that people say nasty things.
Did they tweet a picture of you out of nothing? You just tweeted a picture of them out of nothing. I don't want to sit here and worry about who started it and who said it first. It's childish. I don't care about, well, he did this and they did that. That's bullshit. I'm just talking about you, Justin. I'm just talking about you. And when it comes to you, we have to get you out of this mire. We have to get you out of this ethical pit where it's somehow excusable to fuck with our allies in a sexually demeaning manner. Okay, that's wrong.
I guess this is the intervention. Ethical. I guess it's the intervention for Justin here.
This is what I'm saying. The good news. There is good news here, man. I want you to hear the good news too.
You have the good news.
The good news is I think you have. The good news is I think you have skills. I think you have talent. I do.
Are you going to hand me a Bible?
A great activist. What?
Are you going to hand me a Bible with your good news?
Am I going to hand you a Bible with my good news?
Yes.
No.
Looking back, it is possible to wonder if David Silverman should have made this statement to Skeptic rather than the one we read earlier in this video. As a humanist, I see this guilt by association as based and detestable. They have no redeeming value and will raise no awareness, solve no problems, and hurt those who should be friends. As a long-term activist, I see hatred and threats of loss of employment and standing in the community directed at anyone accused to be reprehensible, serving no purpose other than to hurt and intimidate valuable allies. As a white man, I know that so much of this hate comes from social justice warriors, but they're nothing like me where it counts. As the leader of a national atheist organization, I should have implemented policies regarding perpetual victimhood to minimize such irrational, hateful, and counterproductive behavior wherever my authority allows. We have a war to win, and we won't win until we can look forward, without watching our own backs. American Atheist stands by all its members, supporters, and allies, and we will not tolerate hate directed at any of us, period. That's what he should have written, in my opinion. Goodbye.